Okay, it is Bedlam weekend. We got to get into it, and that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You got to help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I'm not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, we have to talk about Bedlam, which is going to pit two pretty good teams against each other. And yes, this could be just like last year, even though there is no Tylan Wallace and there is no Spencer Sanders. And I'm going to unpack that as we go forward. First, I want to remind you, sign up for my newsletter. There is a link in the description below. And if you do so between now and December 7th, you get an opportunity to win the Hurts lamp. It looks like I fumbled it. Like Jalen. Anyway, sign up between now and December 7th and you get an opportunity to win it. Just, don't drop it. Don't be like me or Jalen Hurts. And I guess that's a good place to start. Because when we talk about Oklahoma and we talk about what the offense is capable of and we talk about what a Lincoln Riley offense usually looks like, we think about driving the ball down the field. We think about 2,000-yard wide receivers, 1,000-yard tailback. We think about a quarterback that is competing for a Heisman Trophy while also passing for more than 4,000 yards in a season. We think about Baker Mayfield. We think about Kyler Murray. We think about one of the most prolific offenses in all of college football. And we think about an offense that continues to set records. As a matter of fact, going back to earlier this season, my man Barry Trammell asked Lincoln Riley, again at the Big 12 Media Days, do you expect the offense to take a dip? To which Lincoln straightened his tie and said, we don't expect the offense to dip. He thought that Jalen Hurts is going to be just as good as Baker Mayfield or Kyler Murray at quarterback. And he's not wrong, but he ain't right. It's about how you're getting there. Because we expected Oklahoma to drive the football down the field, to have Charleston Rambo streaking down the field, CeeDee Lamb streaking down the field, Lee Morris, Grant Calcaterra before a concussion sidelined him, retired him for the rest of his career. We expected to have 2,000-yard tailbacks and Trey Sermon and Kennedy Brooks, and everybody thought everything was going to be great, even as you're replacing 4 starters on the offensive line that's going to be headlined by Creed Humphrey, who was expected to come out early for the NFL draft as a redshirt sophomore because he's this preternatural talent at center. And what do we get? We got a lot of that to start the season. Jalen Hurts averaging more than 300 yards passing a game, averaging more than 100 yards rushing a game, picking up like 400 yards of offense for a program that was averaging more than 600 yards a game. It put up over 700 in one game this year. But since Big 12 play has happened, we're talking about what was a historically elite offense being an elite offense, which is to say that Oklahoma was averaging nearly 51 points a game last year. This year, at least in Big 12 play, they're averaging about 41 points per game. Now, the Big 12 is also catching up to Oklahoma, and this is how I kind of get into Oklahoma State, because Iowa State was able to score 41 on this team in a year in which the defense has gotten better than it was last year. It's not the sieve that it was in 2018. As a matter of fact, the last 2 games, particularly the last 6 quarters, Oklahoma's defense has been really stout, and it's been playing some outstanding football. So Oklahoma's defense has given up a combined 17 points in the last 6 quarters, right? So they gave up 31 in the first half against Baylor, and we saw what they did against Kansas State. You get 48 put up on you by an Iowa State, you get 48 put up on you by a Kansas State team. You get 41 put up on you by an Iowa State team, and there's no reason to believe that Oklahoma State can't do that. But in talking about Jalen Hurts and rounding out this point that I'm making about what the offense is, you've seen Riley not just go from trying to force Jalen to throw the ball down the field, and by force, I mean just call those sorts of plays, to, all right, we're just going to take advantage of what he does well, which is be a running back. He's not especially fast, he's not especially shifty, but he does have enough wiggle to make people miss, and he can give you a problem as you are trying to tackle him because he is so big. Also, he'll give you the ball back. In a year in which Oklahoma has fumbled the ball 17 times, they've lost 9. Jalen Hurts has fumbled the ball in the red zone in 2 consecutive games. Now, he went through his post-game workout following the Baylor deal with a ball in his hand. Try to, talk about ball security. But that ain't been what it is for Jalen Hurts. And this was a team for which Jay Boulware benched Abdul Adams last year for the rest of the season because he fumbled 1 time. Ball security with Ramondre Stevenson has also been an issue. Jaden Hazelwood put the ball on the ground. We understand that they just haven't been as good as you would want them to be at Oklahoma taking care of the football, giving the opportunities to the other team. So a game that should have ended 35-17 against TCU ends 28-24 because Jalen Hurts throws a pick six and he keeps fumbling the ball back to a bad TCU football team, a 5-6 TCU football team. Now, Oklahoma State has Dru Brown at quarterback, who at Hawaii was really, really good, right? And by really, really good, I mean he could have been on par with Sam Ehlinger, with Brock Purdy, with Charlie Brewer in that second tier of what we think of as good quarterback, right? There's a high echelon, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, but in that Kelly Bryant tier of, he's all right. And at Oklahoma State felt like he was going to fit. But he lost the job to Spencer Sanders, and Spencer Sanders was the dude, even as he's a turnover machine. Spencer Sanders, before he had the thumb injury, had thrown 11 interceptions, led the Big 12, right? So you went from having him chuck the ball to, hey, we're gonna try to say if Tylan Wallace is one-on-one, throw him the ball if it's a pass play. If it's not, pull it and go. Or what they've been doing, which is really going to be the headache for Oklahoma, hand the ball to Chuba Hubbard, put it in his belly, and let him go win you a football game. Because Oklahoma State is still built to win a football game against Oklahoma because Dylan Stoner is that dude and has been that dude. And if they get any kind of production out of Jordan McRae, if they get any kind of production out of Jelani Woods, if they get any kind of production out of LD Brown, it could be a really close game for Oklahoma, not unlike the game against TCU where the defense plays well, but you might turn the ball over enough that Oklahoma State gets more opportunity to score. And Dru Brown is a better passing quarterback than Max Duggan is. Now, Charlie Brewer is better than both of them, so you feel good about that, but you needed your defense to hold people scoreless to give you opportunities to win those games. What I'm saying is Oklahoma cannot turn the ball over. If you have 0 turnovers and you have Oklahoma across your chest, I expect to go in Stillwater, get a W, get to 11-1, get to the Big 12 title, and give yourself an opportunity to make the playoff. But if you are Oklahoma State, you feel really good about this game. You're 8-3. I understand that. I know that you don't have Spencer Sanders. I know that you don't have Tylan Wallace, but you do have the best running back in football. Like, I think Chuba Hubbard needs 168 yards to hit 2,000 for the season. He's rushed for 1,832 yards in 11 games on 285 carries, a 6.4 yards per carry with 20 tutties. He's a load. And it's not even that he's just especially shifty. He just needs a sliver of daylight, and he's going to hit it, and you can't catch him. Now, that means that Oklahoma's front seven is going to have to be really good. It means that Kenneth Murray can't overrun him. It means that he's going to have to break down and make tackles, and it means that Delarian Turner-Yell cannot take it for a ride. He's going to have to put Chuba Hubbard on the ground. Because if you're Oklahoma, you key on Chuba Hubbard, you stop Chuba Hubbard, and you force Dru Brown to beat you throwing for 300 yards. I don't know that Dru Brown can do that against this Oklahoma secondary because they have been playing so much better than they had in years past, and they're going to be aggressive on the outside. We've seen Parnell Motley is going to pick up that penalty rather than give up the big play, and that's the way you're supposed to do this. Pat Fields is getting there. We know that Trey Brown can't also be there. So you're going to get opportunities to get passes picked off because you're going to load the box and say, hey, we're just going to try to beat up on your offensive line. We're going to try to take away these ISO opportunities. If you want to hand the ball to Chuba Hubbard 35 times, cool. If you want to try to get him to 175 on the ground, we're not going to let that happen. That's the win mentality you have to come in with if you're Oklahoma. And you also need to understand that this is a game for which Oklahoma needs to run the football again. All right? Kennedy Brooks had 25 carries. Jalen Hurts had 28. They ran the ball 62 times on 85 plays against TCU. Oklahoma, more this year than any other year in years past, is a running team. That's how Oklahoma is going to win games. That's how the defense is going to give them opportunities to win games, and how you're going to keep them fresh enough to get you 3 and outs and get the ball back. Again, it means the handing the ball to Kennedy Brooks and perhaps even Ramondre Stevenson, who was turned into a glorified lead blocker for Kennedy Brooks and Jalen Hurts. And you cannot continue to call all these run plays or give Jalen Hurts opportunities to just take off and run with it if he's going to put the ball on the ground. I don't know what the cure to this is because he's the quarterback. And if you're going to do what Gary Patterson did, which is rush 3 and drop 8, or rush 4, 1 being a safety, and drop 7, and you're going to ask Jalen Hurts to try to pick that apart, he ain't going to do it. He's going to pull it down. He's going to try to run with it, and they're going to try to fly the football and put him on the ground. And that worked. Like, quite honestly, I know Oklahoma put up 511 yards of offense. I know that they rushed for more than 300 yards on the ground, but TCU could tackle. And if you force Jalen Hurts to put the ball in the air, he's going to give you opportunities to pick it off. Like, I'm not just talking about TCU's pick 6. I'm talking about Kobe Harvell-Peel, who has 5 interceptions. And at one point had as many interceptions as Oklahoma did. Okay? That's not a good thing. Now, will Dru Brown give you those opportunities? We'll see. You know, I went back and I watched the West Virginia tape, and he looks like he got happy feet a couple of times because he hadn't done this in a while, but he certainly doesn't look like a guy that this is going to keep happening to. And now that he knows he's the guy and there's nobody breathing down his neck, at least, you know, until a bowl game, I think that Mike Gundy's going to give him opportunities to air it out. I also know that Chuba Hubbard is back there, and I get that. A couple other things that I wanted to get into, particularly as it relates to Oklahoma State and what they are. When you're looking at the receivers, right, you get to Stoner, and you get to Braden Johnson, and then you get to Jordan McRae and Landon Wolf, and then you start to get to running backs, right? I think if you can get other guys involved and get them more opportunities, because like Dylan Stoner's got 41 catches, still hasn't caught Tylan Wallace, who hadn't played basically any in November. You know, you're also talking about Jordan McRae having just 14 catches all season. You need to get him going. 22 catches for Landon Wolf. I think that Oklahoma State could really get to be one-dimensional in this game, and it could hurt them if they don't create any turnovers. But seeing as Oklahoma has created turnovers for everybody going back to the Kansas State game, you got to assume that you're going to get opportunities if you're Jim Knowles. So maybe dial up something nasty and mean, because Malcolm Rodriguez certainly is your best tackler. We established that Kobe Harvell-Peel is your best defensive back, but A.J. Green has the ability to take over a game if you put the ball in the air in his direction. Can you hold up against the defensive line? Trace Ford is going to be so amped for this game. He wanted to go to Oklahoma in the worst way. It's going to be a kid coming out of Edmond, Santa Fe. He's that edge rush in type of kid that can come off the edge and give guys like R.J. Proctor and Adrian Ely some fits, because he's got tremendous spin. He can get around you, and he can get into the backfield. Now, can he put Jalen Hurts on the ground? We'll have to wait to see about that. Will we see a lot of Caleb Kelly in this game? Maybe as much as we did. I know that Kelly's on record as saying, look, we make the national championship, I'm just going to burn the red shirt, and we don't have to play the 5th game. That's just the way it's going to be. And I think that's the way that you have to look at it, because the national championship's way off over there. Because to do that, Oklahoma would have to do something they've never done, which is win a friggin' college football playoff semifinal. So let's not put the cart before the horse on this one here, people. All right, let's not make it that difficult to do. Now, I also want to add in here, you got other weapons that you can go to if you're Oklahoma State. I mean, I really think that they ought to run the ball back 80 times, man. I mean, I get that Dru Brown's good, or could be good. But if you are able to keep Oklahoma's offense off the field, because I know as much as I say that OU is a running team and wants to run the ball, they still average 300 plus through the air. CeeDee Lamb is going to be ready to go. He's sitting on 999 yards receiving. He's probably a little pissed that he didn't get more opportunities because Jalen couldn't see him. Charleston Rambo was overthrown against TCU. I mentioned Lamb was overthrown against TCU. Lee Morris is an absolute dude. You got Theo Weiss and Jaden Hazelwood who are going to be out there, and I understand that Hazelwood did drop the ball, put the ball on the ground, but you got receivers. And if you run these crossing patterns that Jalen Hurts loves so much, and you allow him the intermediate routes and to complete passes over the middle, you can move the ball that way, and then you'll get your burst play, your explosive play, the plays that we've come to know Oklahoma for, right? We know Oklahoma for taking the top off the defense. We know them for having that burner at the Z position, that possession receiver at the X position, and you can go interchangeable at the slot with your H. That's a Drake Stoops type. That's a Nick Basquin type. That's a Trajan Bridges type. Or you can go with your Y. That's a Lee Morris type or an Austin Stogner type. And you can still get what you need to get. You also got these fullbacks that are just going to change the gaps up on you, and they're going to be running butt naked free down the sidelines. And we know that Braden Willis is becoming a really big part of this offense in the way that Demetri Flowers was. Jeremiah Hall can still help you out there. We know that the 10-1 team ought to beat the 8-3 team. And we know that this rivalry, in air quotes, has been ridiculously lopsided on the whole. I mean, there was about 20 years in there where the best Oklahoma State could do was get a tie. But here of late, we're talking about an Oklahoma State team that was a short arm throw away from beating Oklahoma in Norman. All right. And then we got Trey Brown talking about, he stopped somebody. Nah, man. Taylor Cornelius stopped Tylan Wallace from catching the ball. This game is close. We had the punt again, Bob game with Tyreek Hill. We had Mason Rudolph and Baker Mayfield dueling with each other in Stillwater a couple of years ago. This game for me could be just as close as the last three that Oklahoma has played, but I don't think you would be wrong to expect Oklahoma to win this game. And I think that's where we're going to leave it for now. So we're going to have hopefully a ranked matchup of a top 10 opponent versus a top 25 opponent where somebody is going to benefit from this win. I don't think that it's wrong to think that Oklahoma is going to win this game. I don't like the spread being what it is because I think that Oklahoma State's going to cover a double-digit spread. That's asinine to me. I think it's a better football team than people want to believe. I think they've outlasted a lot of people. I think that they're tougher than a lot of people, and I think they want every bit of what Oklahoma's doing. They smell blood in the water. If you're Oklahoma State, you've seen what Oklahoma's done the last 3 weeks. Now, if you're Oklahoma, you're going, hey, man, we ain't dead yet. And we played crappily at times on offense and crappily at times on defense, but the scoreboard says 3-0. Okay? So take all of that into account as you continue to think about this game. But my score prediction for this will be 31-28. Oklahoma gets in the Big 12 title game, probably escapes by the skin of its teeth on Saturday.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner
Texas is trash. I get that Baylor is a 1-loss, 10-win team that Oklahoma needed a miracle of a second half offensively and defensively to beat. I get that Matt Rule is probably going to win every National Coach of the Year award there is because he's a nice guy, and his team should not be anywhere near this good in 2019. I get that Charlie Brewer is that dude. James and Blake Lynch are elite hunters in a target-rich environment, and Bravion Roy is an actual man-eater. But with the 24-10 loss in Waco to the Bears in their mustard unis, Texas fell to 6-5. For perspective, Arizona State is 6-5. Kentucky is 6-5. Tennessee is 6-5. Florida State is 6-5. Miami is 6-5. Washington is 6-5. California is 6-5, and Illinois, you guessed it, is 6-5. Is it time to fire Tom Herman yet? You be the judge. As the clock ran out on number 6 Oregon, which endured the only top 10 upset this weekend, my mind ran to April. My Oklahoma City Thunder had clawed back into an elimination game against the Blazers. Dame Lillard checked his watch, it read Dame time, which is something a little more savage than game time. It's more like Tupac's opening line to Hit 'Em Up, where a man sliced twice like he's been hit with the V in the dystopian British comic book after taking the whole bank of Creedy's bullets in the subway. Yeah. You can't kill a man twice who has already killed you once, especially if you even hope to defend yourself and you're already dead. Dame knew that when he hit the 37-footer from the sticker. Then Logo Lillard hit me with the walk-off wave after soul-snatching the Thunder like his middle name was Shang Tsung. Last night, Oregon checked the scoreboard and it read Sun Devils 31, Donald Ducks 28. Those are the mystical powers of a Sun Devil on display, and you have to consider that. Forget that LSU running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire carried the ball just 6 times for 188 yards in a 56-20 win against an SEC West team. Forget that LSU put up over 600 yards of offense on an FBS program for the second straight week. Just remember, Ed Roll What F You Orgeron refused to celebrate beating Arkansas because, and I quote, they haven't beaten anybody in a long time, so we were just supposed to win that football game and on to Texas A&M. I haven't seen that much shade since the total solar eclipse in July. Yolanda Taylor, get ready to raise your flag once again because it's looking like LSU. The second-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes gave the number 8 Penn State Nittany Lions 3 turnovers. They ate those delicious treats to close a 21-0 Buckeyes lead in the third quarter to 21-17 with 5:06 left to go in the quarter. The Nuts looked drained, but they took some time, focused, and then went back to pounding Pennsylvania's favorite state college 28-17. Chase Young sacked Sean Clifford 3 times and now has more sacks than any other Buckeye, including Vernon Golston, Joey Bosa, and Mike Vrabel. No word yet on whether or not there's a Big Ten West team with enough sack to stop the Nuts. And let's not forget, Ohio State dragged their Nuts across Penn State's run defense. Forget that the Buckeyes rushed for 229 yards. Forget that J.K. Dobbins, who is a load, had 157 of them on 36 carries. Just remember, Penn State had given up just 76 yards rushing a game before they walked into the shoe, and Ohio State rushed for 91 yards on its opening drive. Dominant. Number 4, Georgia beat Texas A&M 19-13 in Athens, but honestly, we're really talking about South Carolina, Arkansas, and the entire state of Mississippi as being the only folks who haven't this year. The Aggies have lost at least 4 games in 20 of the last 21 years and haven't finished the season without a loss since the Southwest Conference was a thing in 1994. The Aggies went 10-0-1 that year. Still couldn't finish the job, could you, Aggies? And while we're talking about mediocre to piss poor football, may I mention again, number 14 Baylor embarrassed Texas 24-10 in Waco. But that's only because Tom Herman called a run play from the Baylor 4-yard line with 5 seconds left to play to make it a 14-point game. The last time the Longhorns had a display like this against insert Christian, Texas also ran school here. They lost 31-9 to TCU on November 5th, 2016, which was the same night Texas brass met with Herman to talk about replacing Charlie Strong Bad Strong. As I mentioned, might be time to call another meeting. Texas is 6-5 and has lost at least 4 games every year for the last 10 years straight. Number 22, Iowa State, put up 41 points on Kansas 2 weeks after putting up 41 on Oklahoma. Unlike their trip to Norman, it's nice to see the Cyclones finish the job. Number 17, Iowa beat Illinois 19-10 in a game where Hawkeyes quarterback Nate Stanley passed for 308 yards. Wide receiver Emir Smith-Marset caught 4 passes for 121 yards in a game that had less scoring all day than OUTCU had in the first friggin' half. I'd rather watch grass grow than bad Big Ten football. Speaking of bad Big Ten football, number 10, Minnesota is still the only school rowing the boat in a singly landlocked state. But the Golden Gophers mollywopped noted Luddite Pat Fitzgerald and the most pretentious J school this side of Missouri 38-22, so I'll allow it. Florida International and Butch Davis put the screws to Manny Diaz and the Hurricanes because Butch is actually the head coach at Miami with a 30-24 win at Miami Marlins Park. Forget the stats, just let me tell you what FIU linebacker Sage Lewis had to say to The Athletic about the win. We wasn't even calling them the University of Miami during the week. We were calling them the University of Coral Gables. We're the true Miami school. We have more students internationally. We did it for the university and really for the world. Top flight of the world, Craig. Not just the city, the world. Said with his whole chest, I hope. Number 5, Alabama paid Western Carolina to stand there and take this beating. This beating being a 66-3 thumping of an SEC cupcake in SEC Cupcake Week. Number 15, Auburn also showed Samford it's still beating heart in a 52-0 why did you play this game. Number 16, Notre Dame dropped 40 on Boston College. Number 25, Appalachian State beat Texas State, but so did A&M, so that ain't saying a lot. Number 13, Michigan reminded Indiana it's a basketball school. Wisconsin tailback Jonathan Taylor rushed for 222 yards on 28 carries against Purdue for his 3rd consecutive 200-yard rushing performance. His 5,856 yards rushing in the 3-year span is the most by any player ever. Utah has given up 10 points while scoring 84 against their last 2 opponents to move to 10-1. Now, those last 2 opponents were UCLA and Arizona, which have a combined record of 8-14, but I'm just trying to make sure that the College Football Playoff Selection Committee gets the notes that it really needs. And in Oklahoma's 28-24 win against TCU, OU's defense picked up an OU passing offense that better resembled a hammered pair of fully loaded soiled Pampers pull-ups than a Lincoln Riley attack. Scoreboard says 3-0 in November. Oklahoma's won 20 straight in the month of November. Matter of fact, dear College Football Playoff Selection Committee, Alex Grinch's defense has given up a total of 17 points over the last 6 quarters. Over the last game and a half, the Sooners have held Baylor and TCU 273 total yards, 4.5 yards per play. OU's defense is not the problem that you think it is. Signed, me. Here's the positive about Jalen Hurts. He became just the third player in the history of the sport to reach 3,000 yards passing and 1,000 yards rushing by the 11th game of the season behind Johnny Manziel in 2012 and Lamar Jackson in 2016. Manziel and Jackson each won Heisman trophies. Hurts also hit just 11 of 21 passes for 145 yards, which is the fewest number of passing yards by an OU quarterback with at least 20 attempts since the 2014 Russell Athletic Bowl against Clemson. Trevor Knight passed for just 103 yards on 17 of 37 in that game. I remember the Russell Athletic Bowl well because I lost my first full-time gig in this business right before it. And like OU's playoff chances, you should have killed me when you had the chance. Because like Edmond Dantes as he leaves the Chateau d'If, and Maximus Decimus Meridia is standing in full before Commodus, I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. All right, that is it for me. Doses.